Hey there, and welcome back to the Startup Process. Let me ask you a question. Who comes to your mind when I ask you to think of someone rich? Chances are, a lot of you people might have thought about Bill Gates. I mean, he is one of the richest people on the planet. In fact, he has been listed multiple times on Forbes as the richest man in the world. I guess we all know that Bill Gates gets almost all of his wealth from Microsoft. At this point, let us also admit that Microsoft has made everyone's lives easier and has revolutionized the world of computing. So, where did it really begin, and how exactly did it get here? And what does Bill Gates do with all that enormous wealth? Let's find out. Based in Redmond, Washington, Microsoft is one of the world's most famous multinational technology companies. It began with two small friends with big hearts and bigger ambitions. Bill Gates and Paul Allen had realized that they had a knack for program and software development and needed to use their skills in the art of programming to make something big and innovative, something beyond themselves. In those days, computers were a new thing, a luxury not many could afford, but definitely one that would become the backbone of future societies. Bill Gates saw a future for software that some tech giants at the time did not yet have the intuition to detect. In 1977, he said, "There are a lot of people out there forecasting that there will be software stores just like there are record stores today." Bill Gates and a couple of his buddies started off as novice troublemakers in 1968 that used to exploit bugs in computers at their schools in order to use them for free. Back then, computers were expensive, and an hour of use cost over $40. Eventually, however, they were caught, so the group of young early teenagers decided to make their own band of misfits called the Lakeside Programmers Club. It was here that Bill Gates and the rest of his friends explored the world of programming and eventually stumbled across their hidden talent for computer programming. Fast forward a couple of years, and Bill Gates had just started off working at Honeywell when he came across news of a microcomputer called the Altair 8800 in 1975. At this moment, the realization that computers were the future kicked in even harder, and Gates and Allen decided to have an attempt at developing a basic software for the device to make it more user-friendly and accessible. After all, they already possessed the programming skills required for such a task. They called MITS, the manufacturer of the computer, and told them they had a working interpreter that would make using the computer easier. After demonstrating their interpreter, the two had already made a name for themselves thanks to the smooth and easy functioning. With that achievement under their belt, the two decided to start a company of their own. This is where Microsoft begins. The name came from Allen, who wanted to call it that because it was a microcomputer software. The name simply stuck. With experience and a sufficient investment that was secured as a result of IBM awarding Microsoft a contract, MS-DOS came about in 1981, giving Microsoft all the publicity it needed to create a strong and reputable foundation. Basically, Microsoft had made a name for itself and, after securing the contract, decided to employ Tim Patterson from Seattle Computer Products. Gates and Allen decided to buy DOS from Seattle Computer Products, and this groundbreaking purchase cost only $75,000. However, after a little reconfiguration, it was sold as MS-DOS by IBM for its computers. Everyone was immediately interested in this revolutionary interface that recreated the entire computer using experience. It was so successful, in fact, that Microsoft successfully licensed it to 70 other companies. I bet Seattle Computer Works had second thoughts afterward. Owing to the immediate jackpot, Microsoft quickly became the largest software developing company in the world. With so much exposure and resources at their disposal, Microsoft began to develop rigorously, and by 1985, Microsoft Windows was out for distribution. At the time, graphical user interfaces were the new big thing, and Microsoft Windows was once again the best option out there for users. This led to absolute domination, with Microsoft securing over 90% of the world's software market. This immense success was further supplemented by the introduction of Microsoft Office in 1990. Just 5 years had gone by since Windows had taken the world by storm, and just when people did not think it could get any better, Microsoft Office brought a whole new purpose to computers, making commercial use of computers grow exponentially. Application software like Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel coming in the Microsoft Windows had made Microsoft appealing more than any other competitor in the market. Speaking of competitors, around this time, there was one other than to this day is one of Microsoft's biggest rivals, Apple. However, back in the 90s, Microsoft was so omnipotent that Apple stood absolutely no chance in the software market. Apple was fundamentally a technology company that primarily developed computers. However, unlike most other computer companies, it decided to take a bold decision and refrained from licensing its software development to Microsoft, making it the odd one out. Subsequently, given how contrastingly useful Microsoft was compared to Apple's own operating systems, especially with the Microsoft Office bundle, this almost brought Apple to the verge of bankruptcy. Software developers also sought to work with Microsoft, given how it cost half the amount to create programs for Windows than it did for Apple's Mac OS. And with Microsoft having 90% of the software market, the choice was pretty easy. Ironically, it was Microsoft who came to Apple's rescue, buying over $150 million in non-voting shares, promising not to sell them for at least 3 years, and creating Microsoft Office and Internet Explorer for Apple's Macintosh computers. This was critical to sustaining Apple, which had seen billions in losses. These measures ensured its inclusiveness in the global software market and allowed companies to have an incentive to purchase Apple computers. There are many reasons why Bill Gates chose to do this, but perhaps the most interesting is his reputation. You see, he was not exactly a world-renowned philanthropist back then. In fact, he was viewed harshly as having created a monopoly in the software market. This move with Apple helped him clear his monopolistic image of Microsoft, and apparently, after that, things turned out to become better for the software market as a whole, bringing back options to customers. As for Microsoft, it continued to grow. Newer versions of Windows coupled with upgrades to Microsoft Office made sure Microsoft kept expanding. With the PlayStation 2 coming out, Microsoft saw gaming consoles as a competitor to the PC and came out with the Xbox, which was released in 2001. The coolest part was how software developers working on PC could easily develop Xbox games as well. To further add a competitive advantage, Xbox Live was launched, greatly boosting sales. After Sony came up with the PlayStation 3 in 2005, Microsoft brought the Xbox 360. With the PS4 came Xbox One, and the rivalry continues to live on to this day. Today, Microsoft is worth almost $2 trillion with so much progress, making it one of the world's wealthiest companies. Unsurprisingly, Bill Gates is also one of the wealthiest people on the planet, as we already know. With a net worth of almost $128 billion, Bill Gates has famously always aimed to make the world a better place. His philanthropic works are well known around the world. Allen had already resigned from Microsoft in the 1980s after being diagnosed with lymphoma. However, Gates stuck around as CEO until 2000, stepped out further with philanthropy as his main interest. He and his wife Melinda formed the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The foundation focuses heavily on the prevention, cure, and eradication of infectious diseases. The foundation itself has done charity work worth billions. For example, just a malaria controlling campaign has already seen over $1.4 billion in work. Primarily, the focus remains on helping underdeveloped countries with all kinds of aid and assistance, including education, healthcare, food, housing, and population management. Moreover, it also donates heavily to established humanitarian organizations such as UNICEF. I guess it only makes sense to help the less privileged come up to speed after you have literally led the entire world into a whole new era of technology. Well, that's it for Gates and Microsoft. Leave a like and let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe for more. Until next time.